pretty established in your meditation practice, so yay. I've been doing Zen at least 20 years, so it's kind of my favorite, if you can have a favorite. It's a silence and stillness practice. So wherein with other meditations you may have guidance, you may be someone talking to you and reminding you, follow your breath, where's your mind, keeping you on track. In Zen, you're kind of on your own to do your meditation. So it can be a little trickier. Some people find it harder. Some people find it less distracting. So what we'll do is we'll have a period of meditation, possibly maybe 20 minutes, and I'll do a little reading. We may have a little discussion, and then we'll do another meditation. And in between times, if you have questions or comments about the meditation or anything about practice, feel free to let me know, and we can take it from there. So with Zen, posture is always emphasized. Posture, breathing, and oftentimes following the breath. So you want to sit up straight, whether you're in a chair or on a cushion. You want to have a straight spine. If you're sitting in a chair, if you could possibly have 2 feet on the ground, that's a more grounded position. Your hands can be on your lap. They can be in a mudra, such as the cosmic mudra. They can be however you want them to be. The suggestion is that you find a posture that you feel you can commit to for the length of the meditation period. So if you're sitting on a cushion and you're like, yeah, I don't know if I can do this for 20 minutes, then maybe sit in a chair. Meditation still counts in the chair, believe it or not. If you are in pain, if something is hurting you and you need to move, please move quietly and mindfully. Otherwise, the suggestion is that you stay still and look at your desire to maybe scratch your nose or wiggle or move. You may find this interesting if you have an itch on your face and you don't scratch it. What might happen? You could find out. Just observe the body and observe our desire to change things. So we talked about the posture, the hands. Most people will say follow your breath. And what we mean by follow your breath isn't just kind of like casually notice that you're breathing, but actually pay attention to each breath. Breathing in, you feel your chest moving, you feel the exhalation. So I often suggest to people, put your hands on your chest to help you feel what that feels like. That's what you should be going after, that sensation that can keep you connected. So you can follow your breath, you can count your breath if you like. As we've talked about before, you can certainly count your breaths from 1 to 10. And while you're counting in the background, your mind can be spinning. It's possible to do. I've certainly done it. Probably others of you have too. There's no fail-safe way. The mind thinks that's what it does. So if you notice that you're slipping away from your meditation and you're often daydreaming, as soon as you can catch it, bring yourself back. Without any scolding, nothing just like, oops, I'm not supposed to be daydreaming. Right now I'm supposed to be meditating. So your job here for these amount of minutes is to meditate. Pay attention to what's going on right here and right now. Now, eyes can be open. They can be closed all the way. Most Zen practitioners will recommend that your eyes be slightly open. Slightly open so you're still in your experience rather than closed all the way where you can tend to get off into dreaminess and sleepiness and maybe fall asleep. If you fall asleep, you fall asleep. Just when you wake up, just start your practice again. So you want to be thinking right now how you want to have a little plan. How am I going to sit? How am I going to hold my hands? How are my eyes going to be open or closed? And then I'll follow my breath. You can also, when you notice a sound can be a reminder to come back to the breath. So let's say you're breathing and you're kind of like you lost yourself for a while there and then you just hear a plane, you'd be like, oh yeah, come back to the breath. So you can use sound to help you in your meditation. And then at the end, so I'll ring the bell 3 times to start and 3 times to end. I also want to welcome the people who are online, especially Jen. Thank you for saying hi. So we'll start with three rings. At the end, we usually will do a little hand bow like this to signal the end of the meditation. You're welcome to join or not join, however you like. Okay. All right, so now would be a good time to wiggle around a little bit, get a little stretch. I'd like to just, if you'd be willing to share your experience, what was that meditation like for you? Was it hard to sit still? Was it hard to follow your breath? Were you distracted? Anybody fall asleep? What was it like for anyone? Dana's shaking her head. What happened for you? You fell asleep, yeah. Your eyes were closed.
Well, they didn't start that way.
Oh, yeah, eventually they close, yeah. I find when I let my eyes close, it's just so easy to just fall asleep. It's just amazingly easy. You know, I wish I could do that at night when I'm trying to actually go to sleep. It doesn't work so well sometimes. Who else? What about the newer people who are maybe new to this? What was it like for you? Yes, sir.
It's like super calming and centering, but also I found it hard to not to avoid the impulse to like scratch my face once or twice.
Yeah.
Very calm.
Yeah. Meditation can be very challenging, especially in the beginning when you're not used to it. It's practice. So what happens when you practice something? You get better at it. So I just want to encourage you, if you're feeling like, oh my God, I just can't get this, just keep doing it. If you can do a little every day, that can be really helpful. Did anybody have an itch that they really wanted to scratch, but they didn't scratch? Mark, how was that for you?
Well, it was a little agonizing.
A little agonizing?
I kept thinking, it was like right in the middle of my back, and I was thinking, maybe I should scratch it and just get it over with. And I can go back to meditating. Otherwise, it might just keep getting worse.
Right.
And
Or it might just go away.
It did. Well, I didn't scratch it, and finally it went away. But then one popped up somewhere else.
Yeah. It's interesting how the mind works. You know, when you get to see how your mind works, like maybe you right away you're like, I gotta take care of this now, it could get worse. You know, do you do that in other parts of your life? You don't have to answer, but you might. Okay. So what we learn in our meditation seats is we learn about ourselves. You know, we're in our experience and we see how we are in it. You know, can I just for 20 minutes sit still? Can I do that? It doesn't seem that hard, but it can be really hard. Can I stay awake for 20 minutes when no one is saying anything and it's just quiet? Can I do that? It can be really hard. It doesn't seem like it should be, but it can be. I see a lot of people smiling. And it's not just for people who are new at it. You know, it could be, you can keep going back to your breath a million times because your mind might just be agitated this time. I see you shaking your head. What was your experience tonight? Good to see you again, by the way.
See, I kept replaying conversations I've had throughout the day.
Yeah.
Ruminating on things like, oh, I should have said this instead of this other thing.
Right.
And that would have been very clever. And
Yeah. Right.
so, yeah, I had to keep redirecting those sort of factors.
Thanks for sharing that, and it's really helpful when you guys share because we all learn from each other, and we all learn like, oh yeah, I do that too. I just didn't want to say it, you know. So it's all normal stuff. Whatever comes up is what comes up. We don't have to feel bad about it or feel that we're not bad meditators or we're not doing it right. It is what it is. So we're trying to be present in our experience. Did anyone notice any sounds that help bring them back? Like there was, I think I heard a helicopter and there was a siren. So sometimes a sound can be like, oh yeah, I was off daydreaming, maybe I can come back. So it's the mind is so seductive. It just makes us want to just like, well, I just want to think about this for a few more breaths and then I'll go back to meditating. Well, how about you just like meditate and then push the pause on what you could have said and then go back to that later. You'll probably still remember it, but we all do it. All right, before I started reading, anybody else have anything else they'd like to share? Anything that was particularly difficult? Anything that you found easy, that you were surprised at yourself?
It's been a long time since I've spent extended periods sitting for meditation. I used to do that a lot, but I'm not used to it anymore.
Yeah.
He was to say I'm probably going to be like this fella and going down in the future.
Well, good for you for coming back and give it another try, you know.
Yeah.
And if you keep on doing it, it will get easier. And, you know, we say it'll change your life, and that sounds like a very grandiose promise, but it will. So, okay, I'm going to read a little bit from this book. I was looking for something to read. I found this on my shelf. This book has been on my shelf for 30 years. And that was probably the longest that I've had a book that I haven't looked at for a while. So it's called From the Zen Kitchen to Enlightenment, Refining Your Life. Dogen and Uchiyama, you're probably familiar with those guys, right, Mark? A little bit? Yeah. So the topic is, it's really about our suffering and how we relate to our suffering. So suffering can be anything that causes us to have discomfort. It can be someone leaves us, someone dies. I had a yucky conversation, it didn't make me feel good. It's raining and it's supposed to be sunny. I have chronic, whatever it is, I have a diagnosis. It could be anything at all. And as you've heard before, the Buddha said life is filled with suffering. It's not all suffering, but there's going to be suffering. So how do we show up in it? So this little story that I'm going to read was written by a monk who was in a monastery a long time ago. And he said, I had been pursuing a life of takahatsu, which is mendicant begging. So he just had his little robe on, and he went around the town or the village to beg for food and basically meditated. On one occasion, I was walking up the long hill of Takagami towards Antaiji, exhausted from the day's efforts. I kicked up a stone or a piece of glass in the dark and cut my toe. It was not much of a cut, so I paid it no mind other than to dab a little iodine on it when I got home. In a couple of days, a thin layer of skin formed over the cut, and I went out begging without putting a bandage on it. It was raining that day, and though the area around the cut got wet, I failed to clean it well. And when I got back to the temple, skin had formed around the cut, although inside it began to fester and swell. Finally, the pain became worse, and I developed a high fever. It got so bad that I could no longer lie face up because the pain from the toe went directly to my head. I piled up several quilts and laid on them. Though it was a cold November, I could not stand clothing or blankets because of the fever and pain all through the left side of my body. I kept naked, cooling myself with the cold air, and suffered through this without a drop of sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. I frequently thought, well, if I'm going to die, then I'll just die. But anyway, I was unable to see a doctor. Particularly during those days, the money I received from begging just would not have been enough to pay a doctor's bill. However, an elderly lady who lived nearby did bring me some licorice bulbs she had dug up and told me if I ground them up, wrapped the mixture in paper, and applied it to my foot, it would help bring down the fever. I did as she suggested, reapplying the dressing frequently. The following is something I wrote shortly after the incident, and he calls it suffering a foot injury. If I had a wife to care for me, if my parents were near, if I had money, I wouldn't have suffered. In my dust-covered room, laying on ragged quilts, recalling Job, quote, I can bear this hard pain. I am grateful. People worry, what if I lose my savings? What if I become ill, lose my job? Always framing their thoughts, what if? They're afraid. Through their fears, though their fears are groundless. Though I'm ill, without savings or income, unable to eat, even if I starved, I wouldn't think it strange. And just for that, I'm grateful. Now that's a pretty extreme story, and I don't know if I could bear all of that pain, but he had himself do it. But then when he was reflecting back on it, he said, it's kind of the way that we think, right? Well, if I had someone to take care of me, well, if I only had money, well, if this happened, well, if, whatever. So that's kind of how we do that. And the thought is, or the suggestion might be, how could I just stay in this the way he did until at the end when he was reflecting on it, which was, again, a little extreme. Mark and I are both retired nurses, and you knew what was coming, right? He's not attending to the wound, he's going to get infected, he's going to get a fever, what's going to happen, he could die, you know. But he didn't think of any of those things. He was just like, okay, this is what I got. So I just want to invite you to think about that in your own life. Maybe not with a physical wound or maybe you have a physical ailment, you have something. How do you show up with that suffering, and maybe how might you do it differently? It's something to think about, and I wonder if anybody has something they could share about that. Yes.
I grew up with like a lot of like adverse childhood experiences, right?
Uh-huh.
So like I relate to that. I do a lot of what ifs, like what if my parents had been like college educated, so on and so forth, what if.
Right.
So I can kind of relate to that, but the practice is showing up with what I have.
Right.
So, and what I have is enough.
Right, and can you see how your meditation practice can help you with that? Just this breath, and then just this breath, and just staying with that experience. That's why meditation is so crucially important. I'll just share something. I have a chronic pain thing. I have arthritis, and there are times when it's really bad, and there are times where it's not so bad. And I go through periods where sometimes I'm just like, oh, poor me, this shouldn't be happening to me. Why is this happening? And I go through all this. I just pile on all this. It should have been different. It could be different. Why is this happening? Then I get back to, well, this is what's happening. And I had a teacher one time say to me, can you just ask yourself this question? Can I see this as my path? So I try to remember that, to see that as my path. My pain is my path. And there are other challenges too, but can you see whatever it is you're going through? Someone died, someone left you, you got a bad mark in school, something happened. Can you see it as your path rather than make up a whole bunch of stories and pile a bunch of stuff onto it? Just be with it. That's the challenge. Anyone else have something they could share? Yes.
Yeah, I think that story and your description of it, for me, raised one of the complexities I wrestle with.
Yeah.
And that is, there's the path, but clearly this monk had choices along the way, and sometimes they made different choices. Mm-hmm. And making choices about not just being present, or depends on what we think about as being present, but thinking about you as a nurse, right? Or thinking about what I know and what is probable outcome given what I know, and what might I do today, in the present, and tomorrow. And so you can see there's like this kind of contradiction here about am I not being present because I'm thinking about what might happen in a probabilistic sense, and I'm going to prescribe the right medicine, I'm going to wash my foot because it might get infected. He seemed to have made that decision once, but then failed to make it again. Right. Was he failing to be mindful when he washed his foot the first time?
Interesting. And we all make our own choices, don't we?
And how that fits, I guess for me, the question I'm trying to express to you that I raised in my own head many times is thinking about choices that way in some way accounted for in Zen, or is it not? Right? How does choice play into Buddhism?
Well, and I'm not a Zen master, so I'm going to say that, to put that disclaimer out there right now. We always have choices. We have a choice to meditate or not meditate. We have a choice to take a medicine that's going to help us or not, right? Or scratch or not, right? So again, I think the training, and this sounds so simplistic and it sounds kind of unbelievable, but the sitting and following the breath and being present in each moment, each breath, trains your mind to be focused on this experience right now. So do that, and then when you get up from your meditation cushion, then whatever comes to you, you can go that way. So that's just kind of a way to sort of explain it. What you don't want to do when you're meditating, if I can just say this, is people say, well, I'll meditate on that. No, that's not meditating, you're thinking about it, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're meditating, you're not thinking about it. And we're not saying don't think, because you're going to think. But can I just be present for this prescribed amount of time between when the bell rings and when the bell rings? Can I just keep coming back to this breath? I'm training my mind. So that's just the best way I can look at it. yeah, I mean, as a nurse, I was reading that, I'm like, oh my God, here we go, right? But that was what I was anticipating. Did it happen? I mean, did he die? He didn't, but that I noticed where my mind went with that, my nursing training. Oh, well, he cut his foot, he didn't take care of it, no good can come of this, but some good did come of it, and he was able to reflect back on it. That's a good question. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else have anything that they personally struggle with? Some sort of suffering or something that's not going well? Yeah.
Yeah, so I would share that they have been meditating on the Spanish Inquisition,
Oh, have you?
which,
Meditating on it?
no, contemplating. Thinking
Oh,
about
okay,
it,
good.
Thinking about it and reading about it. Yeah, that's what contemplating and reading about it.
Got you there.
And taking the perception that there's a part of me that thinks that as a gay man, I would have been tortured and confessed and then maybe executed under the Spanish Inquisition. But I'm living in Spain in the 1480s, but I'm living here now. So I think that's like a mental infection. It's like, and if I do this process, there's a kind of a question of following the breath, noticing, oh, there's this thought here, like this infection, and then just proceeding to acknowledge it, but then not do anything with it, and then just go back to my breath. It allows me maybe to separate or distance myself from
Right, and that's exactly the instruction. Is you're going to have the thought, and you can either entertain it and go down that road, or not. Again, choice, right?
Yeah.
Or you can make a little deal with yourself. Well, I'm just going to think about this for maybe the next 10 breaths, and then I'll come back. Like how are you gonna stand up in this? So that's why I say when I'm leading meditation, your job for the next 20 minutes is to meditate. Go and do all your thinking a little bit later. But yeah, you're training yourself. You are training yourself. And the mind will do what the mind will do. It'll wander off, it'll fantasize, it'll make up worst case scenarios, sometimes best case scenarios, although I don't know how common those are anymore. But there's some good ones coming up right now. But that's what the mind does. So what we're trying to do is train the mind to be present right here and right now. So we're gonna sit again for probably about 15 minutes. So just try to make, if you can, your best effort. And before I do that, does anybody else have any burning thing they want to share or a question? Yeah,
It's
Eric.
not really a question. It's the connection between what you said and what he said.
Okay.
I think when you think about having choices and maybe thinking about what all your choices are, not knowing if you're making the right decision, you're shooting for wisdom. Most of the time, we're all trying to do the next right thing for whatever we've got going on in our lives. When you sit and you meditate and you train your mind to stay in the present moment and not think about the past and not worry about the future, it gives you that space, that little bit of space between whatever your issues are and making your choices so that your choices are better choices.
Yeah.
Because when you're so wrapped up in grief from the past or stress over what the future can bring, you don't make clear decisions because you're too close to whatever it is. And when you give yourself that tiny bit of space, sometimes it's a lot easier to come to choices that resonate as the next right thing.
All right. Yeah, thanks for that. That was good. All right. Okay, so for the next 15-ish minutes, make a commitment to yourself. This is going to be focused, still meditation. You're going to do your best to be present, follow your breath, let go of thoughts as they come up, be still, and see where we go. So did anyone notice the difference between the first sit and the second? You're smiling. What did you notice?
It was shorter.
It was shorter, that's true. Was it easier to focus, or sometimes it gets harder because you're like getting more antsy, you want to go either way?
For me, I felt like my legs settled down.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. How'd you do with the itching, Mark?
Better.
Better? Okay. Did you not have any itching, or you were able to ignore it?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it like that.
Anybody have an easier or harder time staying awake? For those of you who get drowsy? How'd you do, Dana? Easier? Yeah. Sometimes it helps just to make a commitment before you sit, like, okay, for these next however many minutes, I'm gonna do my best, you know? That can sometimes make a difference. I think that's how athletes probably psych themselves up before sports and stuff. Yeah. Anybody else?
Unsurprisingly, it was far easier laying down.
It was easier laying down?
Yeah.
Okay, that can be the case if you have a physical condition. There are people who I've seen longer retreats have to lay down. Otherwise, their back is just so painful, or whatever it might be, that you're just distracted constantly with pain. So that could be helpful. Sometimes just suffering through pain when you're trying to meditate, it just doesn't really work. Because all you can think about is, when is she going to ring the bell? This hurts, I don't like this, you know, all of that. So sometimes you have to make your best decision. What would be the best decision in this case, you know? Like when I couldn't sit on a cushion anymore because my back would hurt too much, it was a bit of a struggle for me to decide, I'm going to sit in a chair, you know, because I had to get through the whole ego thing of, well, Zen meditators don't sit on chairs. Well, we do, don't we? Yeah, so it's just interesting. Like I said, you'll meet yourself while you're meditating. All right, so let's go ahead and close with a transfer of merit. If you feel comfortable, please join palms with me. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. Thank you all for sharing your practice. And before we go, Meredith has a few announcements.
Oh, hi everybody, I'm tonight's host Meredith. We opened the Dharma Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you're done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. If a few people could stay and close and latch the windows, that would also be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well, and we hope to see you all again soon.
Thanks, Meredith. Thank you, everybody.